So I'm no dinosaur expert. I'm no Dr. Ross Geller or anything. I went to a really strict religious Christian grade school, and for some reason they didn't talk a lot about dinosaurs, a lot about the apostles, not a lot about dinosaurs. And then I went to a public high school and also didn't talk about dinosaurs there, because if you talked about dinosaurs, then you probably never touch another human female. So that's why I don't know a lot about dinosaurs. but I do know a few things, because I went to a really informative documentary this weekend called Jurassic World, which I understand a lot of people have gone to see. It's the biggest documentary in the world right now. And I learned about dinosaur behavior, and I thought we'd talk about that this morning. I feel like that's applicable on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. And my gift, we have a couple gifts for you fathers. One we'll give to you at the door. And one is that I'm going to spend about 3 minutes on my Father's Day message, which I think as a preacher might be my greatest gift to you, but we'll see. So we'll do that at the end. But I thought I'd talk about dinosaur behavior, because as far as I can see, it's pretty freaking hectic being a dinosaur, right? Because at the top of the food chain, it used to be T-Rex. Apparently it's Abdominus Rex, but that I don't want to give away the rest of that documentary if you haven't seen it. But at the top of the food chain, there's giant dinosaurs who eat smaller dinosaurs. And I did a little research, which means I Googled in a pit toilet at Relay. But there was... seriously, T-Rex had to eat about 40,000 calories a day just to maintain body weight, and they were always growing, so probably more than that. If you want to translate that, that means it had to eat an adult human and like a 10-year-old child to maintain body weight, as far as we know. A little fact for you this morning. But it seems pretty hectic, because they're constantly eating and constantly growing. And so they've constantly got to hunt, and the other animals are running from it. And you might think that's just at the top of the food chain, but it wasn't. That's the way we think about it, right? Like there's T-Rex and then all the... No. Think about it. All through the food chain, this is going on. Basically, you know, large dinosaurs are eating small dinosaurs or medium dinosaurs, and then the medium dinosaurs are eating smaller dinosaurs, and they're all sort of preying on each other. And sort of the way dinosaur behavior works is you use your power to dominate and devour other dinosaurs, right? And I know right now there's a couple of you going, yeah, but there were vegetarian dinosaurs too. They were nice. The Veganosaurus, if you will, beyond telling other dinosaurs they needed to be vegetarians, what they did is, if you think about it, they were still competing, weren't they? They had like the big long neck ones, but beyond go, look how thin my neck is. That's because I only eat leaves. They were competing with the smaller ones, with the climbers. I'm making most of this crap up, but they were. They're competing, and all through the food chain, basically, dinosaurs are using their power to dominate and devour and even destroy other dinosaurs. And you might go, well, yeah, but that was mostly the big ones. But that's not even true, because we know from the documentaries and also from real science, we know that some dinosaurs actually formed packs, didn't they? They formed packs and they hunted together. So they might not be as large as other dinosaurs, but like the velociraptors were dangerous because they formed a pack, and together their power was greater than anyone else, and they used that power to dominate and devour other dinosaurs. And I don't know if you saw it. Most people didn't, because it was horrible. But the third documentary of this Jurassic World, there were those tiny little pinchy dinosaurs. I don't know what they were called, but I would rather be bit in half by a T-Rex than those suckers, because like they would jump on you like one, you're like, oh, you're so cute. It was like a squirrel that could eat you. I don't know if they were even real, but they looked frightening. So here's the thing. So basically, from being hatched to trying to climb as high as they could up the food chain, dinosaurs, their behavior pattern is this trajectory of power, if you will. They're always scratching for power and clawing for power. They're using everything they can to dominate and devour other dinosaurs. And even as they're growing older, even as they're dying, I mean, until their last moment when they're extinct, they're still scratching for power and climbing and clawing and trying to hang on to their power. Now, a lot of things has changed. That was a long time ago. I think my grade school would have said about 2,000 years ago. Some people would say millions of years ago, but I don't know. I'm just going to say that things have changed, and we know now that dinosaurs only live on an island off of Costa Rica, and humans are now the top of the food chain, but not much has changed. Actually, I was thinking like human behavior is almost exactly, it's like dinosaur behavior. Think about your workplace. Like there are big dinosaurs, right? Like there's the T-Rex, walking around, maybe the CEO of the company, if you will, and he's like using his power to dominate other generally don't eat other people, but using their power to kind of dominate other dinosaurs. And then all down the food chain, think about like the managers and the middle managers and the assistant to the managers. And in most cases, humans act just like dinosaurs. And we use whatever power we have, even if it's small, to try to dominate and devour smaller people. And if we don't think we have enough power, what do? There's packs of people, there's unions and parties and factions, and we'll gather together and go, okay, well, maybe we're not as powerful, but together we're more powerful than anyone else. And so in your workplace, definitely in government, it's the same story. There's a few big dinosaurs roaming the earth as heads of governments. But all down the line, from senators to staffers to bureaucrats to judges, everything down the line through the food chain of humans, if you think about it, we behave almost exactly like dinosaurs. Big dinosaurs devour and dominate smaller dinosaurs, and it happens throughout the food chain. Corporations, just dinosaurs, basically. They act exactly the same. Big corporations use their power to dominate and devour smaller corporations and all the little people. It's just, we live in a world, I'm convinced, filled with dinosaur behavior. And honestly, I was thinking about this. I think the trajectory of power looks exactly the same for human behavior as it does for dinosaurs, doesn't it? Like we start out, everybody, even the largest corporation or the person who's, Barack Obama, who's president now, started out powerless. And somehow through education and just had to be tough, scrapping for power. Every president who's ever been president to become the big dinosaur, you didn't just end up there. You have to scrap for power and you have to claw for power. And eventually, if you're going to become the biggest dinosaur, you're going to have to keep eating, keep growing. And from corporations to politicians, every one of us at our workplace, it looks just like this. And we don't give up ever. We're always trying to grow, always trying to biggerize, if you will. That's the Dr. Seuss term. I looked that up also. But always trying for more. And so we cling to power all the way back down. And wow, what a great song. I actually have never tried to buy a song. I actually bought your EP, guys, during the song service because that last song, Father's House, I didn't find that one, but I want it. What a perfect example of that. And so I think the trajectory of power for people looks almost exactly like that for dinosaurs. And here's the thing. It's not a new thing. It's not an American thing. It's not a dinosaur behavior thing. Jesus dealt with this very same thing when he walked the earth. I want to read this to you, but I want to just set it up a little bit in Mark 10:41 through 45. There's a snippet of action between Jesus and his apostles that's just amazing. And it's really amazing when you understand that James and John, and just imagine how much this must have angered the other apostles. James and John, their mom comes to Jesus and says, oh, by the way, I know you already know this, Jesus, but my boys, they're the best of your crew. And so when you set up your management team in heaven or even here on earth, because they thought he was going to take over the world, she's like, when your kingdom comes that you've been talking about it, I think James and John, my boys, should be your right and left hand. I'm pretty sure they should be your vice saviors or whatever. I don't know. But she's like, they're the best. They should have the most power. And it says when the other 10 disciples heard what James and John had asked, and it actually turns out it was their mom that asked, they were indignant. Oh, I bet they were. Try that at work. Your mom shows up and go, oh, by the way, my boy, he's the best. You should put him in charge. Can you imagine this scene? And so Jesus called them together. Notice Jesus huddled them up, and he's like, we've got to talk about this. This is not good. And he said, you know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people. So he's saying, you know that the rulers of this world, they exhibit dinosaur behavior even back then. This is nothing new. He's like, they lord it over their people, and they flaunt their authority over those under them. So he's basically saying big dinosaurs eat little dinosaurs. That's just the way it is. And medium dinosaurs eat even smaller dinosaurs. And the smaller dinosaurs, they gather together in packs and try to eat everyone together in hunting. It's just normal. But he said these words, and we have this on some of our T-shirts, I think, from a year ago, and I love just seeing them and wearing them around, but this is something important here at Action Church, because Jesus is the first one and the last one to give us a different path. You know, everybody goes, oh, I'm not for those big dinosaurs maybe, but join my dinosaur hunting pack and we'll take them down. But I hardly hear anyone say, you know what? I think I've probably got plenty of power. You know what? In fact, I'm going to give my power away because I've got too much power. You never hear that. But Jesus said this. He said, among you, it will be different. He didn't even say it might be or, hey, you can vote on this. He's like, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. And then he says, for even the Son of Man, even me, that's what Jesus called himself. Even Jesus came not to be served, but to serve others and give his life as a ransom for many. That's the first and the last, as far as I know, different way of looking at life, of dealing with power, of not just using power to dominate and devour and destroy. And so that's why over the last few weeks in this new facility, and you know, everything's changing. We've never had a permanent facility. The church is growing, and we go, well, are things different? Oh yeah, of course they're going to be different, but there are essential things that we have to take with them, and one of this is this principle. We call it the Powerdown principle. We didn't make it up. It's something that Jesus taught. And so I just want to run back through kind of familiar ground. We've talked about this through the years, but we actually talked about this for 5 weeks a few years ago. And this story is sort of the example, and that's the great thing about Jesus. Like, Jesus set his guys down and said, among you it will be different. And then he didn't just go and, you know, so many leaders, and this is so frustrating in the workplace or in government or anywhere else there's leaders, you kind of go, he says one thing, but he doesn't live it out. That's the opposite with Jesus. Jesus spoke very little about leadership, but whenever he did, oh my goodness, did he demonstrate it. And so we find Jesus in Matthew 9 and 10, and kind of we can demonstrate how he lived this out. In 9 and 10, Jesus incorporated his blowing up. Now, I mean, you've seen people rise to power, rise to fame, but nothing like Jesus. Everyone in the known world, it says, was like coming to Jesus. They'd heard about Jesus. There's no social media. There's no written, printed press. But yet everyone's heard because he's so amazing, because he's healing people. He's raising people from the dead. He's feeding thousands with just a few loaves and fish. Like, we're going to talk about how we fed people, but we had a caterer help us. Like, that's not how Jesus did it. He could take like a Lunchable and turn it into enough to feed thousands, which would be a nice trick. But so it was just, everyone had heard about Jesus. Jesus' fame is growing. And as you can imagine, like we experience, like as more that we do, the more people you need. That's one thing that's true about life, not just for dinosaurs. When you're growing, you always need more energy. You always need more and more and more because you're constantly growing. And that's what happened to Jesus. And here's how Jesus dealt with that life fact. It says, Jesus traveled through all the towns and villages of that area, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news about the kingdom. And he healed every kind of disease and illness. And he saw the crowds, and I love this. He didn't say, oh, wow, I'm famous. He said he had compassion on them because they were confused and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And he said to his disciples, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest. Ask him to send more workers into his field. So this is a moment where you or I would think it was time to power up. If the principle that we talk about that I'm going to explain to you and remind you of is power down, most of us would think this is the time to power up, right? Okay, so people are coming to us. We have overflow crowds. We have more than enough to do. Now's the time to, I don't know, like franchise or build a healing center or, like we could think of 1,000 ways, like let's invest in infrastructure. Let's build a monorail. I don't know why. I just like to say that. Like build a monorail and bring people over to Jesus Island and we'll charge a small $75 admission and they'll be healed and fed. And, like you can think of 1,000 ways when you have this situation where you've got fame beyond belief. You've got everyone in the world coming to you. Why not build a stadium? That would be okay. We'll have a few taxes. It'll be fine. So, like there's 1,000 ways you could think. Like we could, and so he asked his disciples to pray a prayer, and I imagine every one of those like joined in that prayer. Like nobody had their eyes open. Nobody's looking around. They probably even raised their hands and they weren't even Pentecostal. Like, yes, Lord, pray for more workers. This is getting hard. You know, I saw a couple of you yesterday at the event actually making that prayer like, dear Lord, send more workers because I'm freaking tired. You know, I don't even know. It was weird. You were speaking in tongues and it was because you were tired and we're not even that kind of church. I know that. So I bet everybody thought this is the time to power up. This is the time where we're going to big our eyes. We're going to use our power. Instead, Jesus did something that surprised all of them, and not the happy birthday surprise, because it said Jesus called his 12 disciples together and gave them authority to cast out evil spirits and to heal every kind of disease and illness. And here are the names of the 12 apostles, which I won't read through because I'll butcher. But it's interesting. They're like Simon and Andrew and James. Some of them are fishermen. There's a zealot and a Pharisee in there, which is funny because a zealot is like an anti-government militia member, basically, trying to bring down the government. There's also a government member, which is Matthew. Matthew's a tax collector. He's got totally opposite. I love the diversity of Jesus' team. We have Judas Iscariot who's robbing him, and he's the treasurer. I mean, what a motley crew. And Jesus gives them all the power that he did. I mean, think about this. What Jesus is basically doing, he's saying, here's the secret sauce. You go do this. And I love this because Jesus still says this to all of us today. He's like, remember how you prayed for more help? You are the answer to your own prayer. So I imagine they're like, what? I don't know if they ever prayed again. They did. But like it was crazy because we can't imagine that, right? Like we can imagine people rising in fame and power, but we can't imagine them going, okay, now you just go do what I did. I'm not going to franchise you. I'm not going to make you part of my organization. I'm not going to send you out with a tractor trailer and you just kind of do my thing. No, he's saying like, you go do what I do. I'm giving you all the power to do that. It's just not typical dinosaur behavior because dinosaurs don't do that, right? We don't go, okay, I've got enough. My corporation is big enough. My government power is enough. You know, I just want other people to participate and have theirs now. I don't need any more. In fact, I'm going to give mine away. That's not what we do. That's what Jesus did. And so he sent out the 12 apostles with these instructions. Listen to this. Don't go to the Gentiles and the Samaritans, but only to the people of Israel, God's lost sheep. Go and announce to them that the kingdom of heaven is near, and heal the sick and raise the dead and cure those with leprosy and cast out demons and give as freely as you have received. Now think about the tasks that he gave them. And something that never happened before. Like someone with that much power goes, okay, now you go do what I do. He said, don't go to the Gentiles, go to the Jews. Now, later on, they were able to go to the Gentiles, or we wouldn't be here. And we've talked about that a few weeks ago from the book of Acts. So basically what he said is the hardest thing. Start in your community. Isn't it the hard? I mean, remember this. If you're a follower of Jesus, that moment when you go, okay, I'm a fully devoted follower of Jesus. I'll do what you say, Jesus. And now I have to tell others about that. Isn't it hardest to tell people closest to you? Like, it's one thing. Like, I will tell you, and I'm a horrible preacher, but you put me in another city, and they think I'm awesome. Like, they don't know, seriously. Yeah, I know you can't imagine that, but seriously, like, if I go somewhere else, and I'm Don from Action Church, and I can tell my best stories, and they haven't, like, spent 24 hours awake with me like most of you have, and seen the, you know, like, they still have respect for me, and they're like, he's awesome, but it's hard to live a life that people still have respect and love for you and go, I think he's a real follower of Jesus in your own community, and that's what he said. Like, go into your own community and be followers of Christ with power. And meet their overwhelming needs. Like, if you go out and say, hey, I'm going to heal everybody that's sick, that's going to get hectic real quick. I'm going to feed everybody that's hungry. You know, like, he sent them out in impossible situations. Like, I shouldn't say impossible. That's why we changed it to overwhelming, because impossible is impossible. But honestly, you can't, in human terms, feed everyone that needs fed and heal everyone. And so it's just overwhelming. So he knew they'd have to trust him. Like we talked about faith last week, they'd have to have the lever of faith because it's never going to work without it. And basically, he said the most powerful words. He said, give as freely as you receive. Basically, he's like, charge people what I charged you. We kind of said that at the shaved ice stand. You know, like, it's free. You know, you can give to Asa. It's just crazy. And people looked at you like you were strange. Like, what? This is free? People have a hard time receiving free things even. It's funny. But he was saying, I didn't charge you anything. Like, you were a fisherman a month ago or 6 months ago or a year ago, and now you can heal people. You're not a doctor. You didn't go to med school, so charge them exactly what I charged you for that ability. And it's Strange way to send people out. Strange way to start a movement, an organization. Then he says this, which had to really go over well. He says, don't take any money in your money belts. Empty your wallets, guys. That's pretty simple, actually. But don't add any to it. No gold, no silver, or even copper coins, nothing. Don't carry a traveler's bag with a change of clothes and sandals or even a walking stick. Don't hesitate to accept hospitality because those who work deserve to be fed. And whenever you enter a village or city, search for a worthy person and stay at his home until you leave town. And when you enter the home, give it your blessing. If it turns out to be a worthy home, let your blessing stand. And if it is not, take back your blessing. And if any household or town refuses to welcome you or listen to your message, shake the dust from your feet. Isn't that amazing? What he said to them is, you're not the top of the food chain. See, I'm not sending you out with power. Like, here, I mean, imagine, he gave them power, big power. Like, do you have the power to heal? Power to, no. This is amazing power. Power that you could monetize. Power that you could use to become famous. Power that you could use to dominate or actually destroy others. But he said, no. You're not the top of the food chain. In fact, I don't want you to even take anything with you. Don't take anything. Like, you're going to have to go out knowing that you're going to need others to even live. I mean, what a weird way to start this whole thing. And in fact, if you think Jesus just made a mistake there, he actually, we call it the Last Supper, but the last meal they had together before Jesus went to the cross, he actually reminded them of this moment. So we find in Luke 22, Jesus asked his disciples at that last moment, when I sent you out to preach the good news and you did not have money or a traveler's bag or an extra pair of sandals, did you need anything? No, they replied, we didn't. He actually did this on purpose so they would go out and have to go, we're not going to have what we need, and they'd see that he provided it. But it was a reminder to them, you're not the top of the food chain. You're not going to dominate people. You're not going to devour people. But also, you're not at the bottom. You're not just sending you out as dinosaur food. You know, we get the idea, and religious people are really bad at that. They either go, hey, we're the top of the food chain, or we're the bottom. You know, either it's prosperity or it's poverty. Both are nonsense. That's not what Jesus taught. That you would be rich if you had faith, or you'd be poor if you had faith. No. He said the worker is worth his hire. Your workers, you're going to do valuable things, and people are going to give to you because of that, but you're not going to use that power to dominate them. It's a totally permission-based economy that is just nowhere else but in the Scripture. He's saying, like, people are going to take care of you because they appreciate you. I mean, as a church, look around, like, we don't take up an offering. We haven't taken up an offering any time during the 7 years. But is it not? And we give crap away all the time. We'll talk about, you'll see it later on the screen, and you were part of it. And I love the first timers this weekend because they're like, this is just weird but awesome. And it is. But guess what? When you do that, Jesus was also right that people would return that to you. Hospitality happens. We would have been broke years ago if this principle didn't work. But he also said this, not everybody's going to applaud. Like, in fact, he went on, and we don't have time to talk, but he's like, some people are going to hate you. Some people are going to imprison you. And it was true. And here's the thing. He said, it's still a dinosaur world. I know a lot of people go, well, if we just do what Jesus said, then the world would be perfect, and everybody get along, and we'd, like, dance around on a hill and drink Coke or do Coke or whatever. I forget. I'm really tired. But, like, something good would happen, and we'd be happy. But that's not what the Scripture said. He's like, they're going to hate you. But he also gave them brilliant words from Taylor Swift. He was just like, shake it off, man. Shake it off. Because haters going to hate and the faker's going to fake. And I think I messed those lyrics up. I might need some help. My daughter's got her hands in her head. I'm sorry, honey. But anyway, that's what Jesus said. Jesus knew that Taylor Swift would be right. He said, shake it off as you walk out of the thing. And here's the great news. And this is true. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't true. Jesus' followers never became extinct. I mean, isn't that crazy? Like, all of the political parties, all of the corporations, all of the governments throughout those years since, most of them are gone. Most of them are extinct. And you're like, yeah, but mine's not. The party I'm part of, the government, America, it's never. Really? Go another couple thousand years and see if that's true. Because every freaking one of them went extinct like a dinosaur, but not Jesus' followers. We're still here. So I think this thing, I believe this works. I believe Jesus is sort of backwards. I'll use my power. I have great power. I'm going to give it away, and I don't use my power to dominate or destroy like everyone else does. But I don't just go out and get even if you kill me, I'll come back. It's just this amazing mixture that Jesus, it's a third way. And so I want to talk to dads and other dinosaurs. Because dads, let me just say this to you, and I told you in 3 minutes I can finish this up. But you're freaking dinosaurs. Everyone says you're going to be extinct. We don't need you. Like you're got short arms and big heads. I don't know if that's from something else. I don't even know. But like people think dads are worthless. Dads are old-fashioned. And I know like you have privilege. And you're like, I don't feel like I have any privilege. It sucks being a responsible dad. How is that? And so I just want to say to you, dads. Two things. Whatever power and whatever privilege you have. How about do what Jesus said and use that power not to dominate or devour or destroy your opponents, your coworkers, your family, but what if, and I see you guys doing this, and I want to encourage all of you to do this, keep that power, gather that power, but use it, whatever power, whatever privilege, whatever resources you have, to serve others, to serve your family. And guess what? Guys? Do what Jesus did also. You want a perfect model of being a great dad? Do this. Use all your power to love and serve others. Give it away. And for your children, send them out like he sent the apostles. I'm not talking about like empty your wallet before you go out, although it would keep them out of trouble on a date. I'm just saying, well, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. Don't listen to me on that. But like you don't have to give your kids everything in life and set them up forever. You don't. Jesus didn't. Like let them learn that they can trust God, but start them out with the knowledge and the understanding to trust God. And I don't think your family line will ever be extinct. And you know what? Not everyone will applaud you, dads, but if you just go ahead, you don't have to feel bad, you don't have to apologize, but just use everything you have to serve and love your families and train up kids that will go out into the world, maybe not with every monetary thing that they can wish for, but with an understanding that they can do the same thing, and you, dads, can change the world. That's my dinosaur talk for you, but this is the essential that I want to leave you with. And we're going to have another song, the band will jump back up there. And we've got a video, because I think I can show you this. And you were there, but Josiah was skulking around with a camera or a drone. I love the moment we're all lined up, and I could see him kind of skulking around behind a shed with a drone. And I was like, either that's a bomber or that's one of our people. I don't know, because I couldn't really see in the distance. But anyway, thankfully it turned out to be him with the drone. But I think I can show you this. But this is an essential going forward. There's another way of living. As a church, you know what? Churches power up all the time. The history of the church is to power up. Like Jesus started the church like that with nothing. And he said, just take what people give you and it'll be fine. You don't have to be broke. You don't have to be poor, but you're not going to be the top of the food chain. And we powered up. And guess what? Church will power up if we're not careful. But we won't if we remember this essential thing. Among you, among us. We can't change the world. There's still dinosaur behavior. We're not in charge of other churches. It's none of our freaking business, but among us. It'll be different. And whoever wants to be a leader, this is true. We say this all the time. I tell you this. People come up to me. I met leaders this week. I saw leaders in action. And you know what? You know who leaders are at Action Church? People who serve. People who serve the most. We have no one in charge, but we have people that are responsible for. And that's what Jesus said. Among you, it'll be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. Whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. Dear Jesus, thank you for this brilliant, inspired, literally, idea. God, we're dinosaurs at heart. Our every intention, our every sort of like base instinct is to scratch and to claw and to use our power, whatever little we have, to dominate and devour and destroy. But God, thank you for another way. God, help us to be a people that power down instead of power up. God, help us to be a people that give away whatever power we have. And then, God, I pray right now there are people in this church who are talented and they're leaders and they're awesome. And I pray that we wouldn't even just always hang on to them, but they would go out and start other things bigger than this. In your name we pray. Amen.